Pillars of society, African women before colonialism. Before the arrival of colonizers, African societies flourished. Women were not relegated to the shadows. They were leaders, entrepreneurs, and custodians of knowledge. They held positions of power within their communities. Their voices resonated in matters of governance, spirituality, and social life. These women were instrumental in shaping the identity and destiny of their people. They were the backbone of a thriving and balanced society. These women were not just figures of authority. They were also the heart of their communities. They nurtured families, preserved traditions, and ensured the well-being of all. Their wisdom, passed down through generations, ensured the continuity of culture and heritage. Their influence permeated every aspect of life, creating a harmonious and prosperous existence. Order and balance, the foundation of pre-colonial life. Pre-colonial Africa was not a monolith. It was a tapestry of diverse cultures, each with its own unique customs and traditions. However, there was a common thread that ran through these societies: a deep respect for order and balance. This principle was reflected in every aspect of life, from governance and justice to family and community. This emphasis on balance extended to the relationship between men and women. It was not a competition for dominance. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. Men and women had different roles, but they were seen as complementary, each contributing to the well-being of the whole. This equilibrium ensured the stability and prosperity of pre-colonial African society. The disruption: Arab and European invasions. The arrival of Arab and European invaders marked a turning point in African history. These outsiders, driven by greed and a sense of superiority, sought to exploit Africa's resources and people. They came bearing promises of trade and progress, but their true intentions were far more sinister. Weaponry and ruthless tactics subjugated African societies. They looted wealth, enslaved populations, and imposed their own systems of governance. This marked the beginning of a long and brutal period of exploitation and oppression, tearing apart the fabric of African societies. The invaders did not just seek to control Africa's land and resources. They also sought to dominate the minds of its people. They imposed their own beliefs, values, and systems of knowledge, dismissing African traditions and spirituality as primitive and backward. This cultural imperialism was a key weapon in their arsenal of control. Christianity, often presented as a condition for ending slavery or gaining favor with the colonizers, disrupted African spiritual practices. Traditional healers and spiritual leaders were demonized, their knowledge and practices suppressed. This forced assimilation aimed to erase African identity and replace it with a Western mold. The impact of colonialism on African women was particularly profound. Once revered as leaders and equals, they were relegated to second-class citizens in their own land. The invaders, with their patriarchal views, saw women as inferior, fit only for domestic roles. This undermined the status of women and disrupted the balance that had existed in pre-colonial societies. The economic opportunities created by the colonial system largely excluded African women. They were denied access to education and relegated to low-paying jobs. This economic marginalization further entrenched their subordinate position in society, leaving them vulnerable and voiceless. Even after the formal end of colonial rule, the legacy of exploitation continued. Many African leaders, installed or supported by Western powers, served as puppets for their former colonizers. They prioritized the interests of foreign corporations and governments over the needs of their own people, perpetuating the cycle of dependency and underdevelopment. These leaders often adopted the same oppressive tactics as their colonial predecessors, silencing dissent and enriching themselves at the expense of the masses. They turned a blind eye to corruption, human rights abuses, and the widening gap between the rich and poor. The true history of Africa, particularly the experiences of women, has been suppressed for too long. It has been distorted by colonial narratives that paint a picture of a continent in need of saving, a continent devoid of its own history and achievements. It is time to challenge these narratives and reclaim the silenced voices of the past. Breaking the silence requires confronting uncomfortable truths about the past and present. It requires acknowledging the complicity of some African leaders in perpetuating colonial systems of oppression. It requires demanding accountability from those who continue to exploit Africa's resources and people.